This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hello, I'm Helene Woods, and this is Let's Quilt, episode number 18. Today we're going to be finishing up our placemats. To start off with, we're going to take our placemats and we're going to have to trim off all of this extra fabric. In doing that, we're going to measure a 3/4 of an inch from the last seam that we made on our pieces here. And now to do that, what I found was a simpler way to do it, as I take my ruler and I measure in 1 3/4 inches, and there again I use the masking tape and place that right on that line. Let me show you how we'll go about trimming off our placemats. I want to make sure we get our seam right here. That's where we're going to place our ruler. So I'm going to take the ruler and I'm going to place it, and as you see I've got 1 3/4 inches in. And if I look through my ruler, I can see that little seam line. I want to place that right on there. Make sure that this is all even. Then we're going to take our rotary cutter, and I'm going to trim this off a little bit, and then we're going to come down and very carefully trim off all that fabric. There. We'll measure it, and there we've got 1 3/4 inches right from our seam line. So we're going to continue in doing this on all sides. And now I'm going to cut a short side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use this seam line right here. I'm going to place my ruler with the masking tape on it right there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and trim this off. There. There again, 1 3/4 inches. And this is how your placemat is going to look after you've cut off all your sides. Now we're going to have to go ahead and we're going to cut off here at the diagonal. There again, there's a seam you're going to follow. And I'm going to put masking tape and the ruler right there, and we're going to trim that off. So I'll do those on all 4 of the corners. Right along there. Place your ruler right on there. Trim that off. One more. All right, here we are. Our placemats are all nice and trimmed up. Now we're going to put our backing on. To put the backing on, we're going to take our piece that we've already trimmed earlier. We're going to place it right sides together on top of your placemat. And we're going to line up all the edges as well as we can. If there's something that's a little bit larger or whatever, just maneuver it around until you get it so it's fairly straight. Now I have this a little bit larger. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trim this off. It's because it doesn't make any difference at all in the looks of the placemat. And then when I sew my 1/4 inch seam around, they will all be even. I'm going to go ahead and trim this off. we're going to get the placemat ready to sew, so we're going to pin. And I suggest you pin this all the way around so that it doesn't slip, because you're going to have to be making this seam 1/4 inch just like we do all the rest of them. When you get down to one long inch here, I'm going to have you leave this open between 4 and 5 inches. That way, when we turn it, you can get your hand in and not stretch your stitches a little bit. And another inch or so is not going to make any difference. So if you have a large hand, make it 5 inches. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you another little trick that I do. Is if I'm going to be leaving an opening, I crisscross my pins so that I know that what I'm to stop there, and then I can continue on. Now we're going to start sewing. There, as always, we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to start here, and I'm going to start right where I put some of my crossed pins, and I'm going to pin sew this on down. You might take a back stitch right here because you're going to be having to slip your hand in there. And come down here. There, now there's a 1/4 inch, and so all we have to do is take your pin out, raise your pressure foot, and just pivot. Now I need one more stitch, so I'm going to, there. Now I'm on a 1/4 inch, and I'm going to do this all the way around till I get back to the other side. My crossed pins, and there again I'm going to back stitch a couple of stitches on here so I don't pull these stitches when when we have to turn. Let me show you a little trick that I like to do. We have all these corners here, and when we turn this inside out, it's going to bunch up a little bit. So I take my scissors and I very carefully just cut off those little tips, and that way it makes it a little smoother seam. These scissors don't want to cut. There. I do this all the way around, and just do it very carefully. You don't want to cut into your seam itself. All right, now we're ready to turn our placemats the right side out. So you can, if you can wiggle your hand in here a little bit, and then just bring your fabric all through. And it's a little tough because you've got all that batting in there, but it will come through. There we go. Straighten it all out. And put your hand inside of it and make sure that you get all those diagonal corners out. That's what makes the placemat look so unique. Now we're going to press this because we're going to top stitch it. If you're having a problem getting all these corners out really nicely, sometimes what I do is if I have a blunt end scissor, I can just stick it inside of there and just take it along the inside edge and then gently push that so that you get a nice corner on the edge. Make it nice and straight. And that way, you see how that comes out just a little bit. Then when you press it, then you get a nice edge. Okay. Now we have this all nicely turned out, and I would suggest to you that you take a minute and you take your bottom backing piece of fabric and just fold that along there, and then just press that gently so you get a nice crease in it. Like that. And we'll turn this over and do the same thing with our top piece. And that way we can get a nice joining of the fabric, and then we're going to sew that. Okay, and now I've got this And I'm going to, there again, I'm going to press this again to make sure that we get this nice and smooth. There. Then we can pin that, and we're going to go ahead and press the rest of the placemat before we go ahead and stitch it. I'll pin this closed. I'm going to go ahead and press this now, and there again I suggest, if you can, just pick your iron up and place it back down, not glide it too much, just like we have done on the other pieces that we've done. I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing. And press the whole thing. Make sure that your center is all nice and flat. The first stitching that we're going to do would be along our outer edge of the placemat to make sure that we get it stabilized. Now, in the placemat that I have made previously, I went ahead and used the nylon filament. But as a suggestion to you, there's so many lovely colored threads on the market these days that perhaps you would like to put, say, a red or a green, whichever you might want to choose. But anyway, I'm going to go use the filament, and so we'll get busy stitching that. We're going to start stitching our top stitching now. First of all, you put on your walking foot. I put down my blue tape for my 1/4 inch, and then I want to make sure that you change your bobbin thread and have the correct color in that. Now I've chosen red, and I thought that would look pretty here on our poinsettias. So we're going to start first, and I'm going to start right where I had the stitching, the fabric here where I had a turn. And I'm going to start right on the other end of that and go ahead and start stitching right there. We stop stitching all the way around here so we get a nice edge on this, and then we're going to go ahead and do the stitch in the ditch in the middle. Now we're going to take our placemat and we're going to start quilting it. So we'll be doing stitching in the ditch as we've done before, and I'm going to have you go right along in all these seams all the way around. You come back here, and then maybe you could start out here on this one. But we want to start in the center and work our way out. And don't forget, when we start stitching in the ditch here, to remember to pull up your bobbin thread and make sure that we have that up so that it can be looking nice and smooth when we get finished. So I brought it up. Now we can start stitching. Try to keep your stitches going right down the middle of that seam. Here's our finished placemat. And as you can see, by using the Thermalon here and using the stitch in the ditch, we've got a nice little puff here for them. And I think they turned out really nice. Now in our next episode, I'm going to show you how you can make some napkins to go with this. So until then.